So once you've played around with keyframing and making things move around the screen and just understanding how time works in After Effects, you're probably ready to think about the effects part of this whole scenario, which is how do you change or affect things and add special effects to your kind of project, whatever it is you want to do. So just for the sake of this assignment and this sort of like project example, I'm going to use the video footage that I put in here. And this video footage is kind of like rolling, like just some fabric rolling around as like an abstract background. And so it's possible that I would want to change that or add something to it. And so the main thing you need to make sure you do is make sure you have the right layer selected. Always make sure you have the layer selected and highlighted down there. And then if you go in here under effects and presets, you'll see that there are just a million like options for you to play around with and change, right? And so there's a lot of different things that you can use for effects on here. Like blur is a good example of one where there's just a lot of these kind of blur options. So like if, for example, if I put a compound blur on this, you can see the filter, the effect kind of looks like a Lego. So if I click and drag that and drop it on there, over here you're going to see a change. You're going to have a project panel, and then you're going to have an effects controls panel, and that's where all of the components that you're messing with here will show up, right? And so if I crank up the blur on that like crazy, I'm going to get, go from 0 all the way up to like pretty much it's totally gone. All the detail on that's gone. It's just a big kind of amorphous shape now. That's what the compound blur does. Sometimes there's lots and lots of options underneath these that you can play around with. But I can keyframe it, which, again, if I put a keyframe down for that, and then I like crank this all the way back, and then I move forward a little bit and change it again, I should get a blur between. It should go from sharp to blurry, and then I can make it go back to sharp again. And that could be an effect that I could keyframe over time, right? And so you could see it sort of changing, which could be useful. And I can't really see the details of it because I have the twirl down up. If I drop the twirl down here, you'll see these little dots, which tell me I need to go further into a menu to try to find the actual like places where I did some keyframing. So and I can adjust all of these things. I can kind of dial them in down here. Just as long as you have the stopwatch checked, you'll make sure you can drop and change keyframes. So there's that, but then you can also do other stuff on top of it. So you can stack effects on top of each other. So if I did that one, but let's say I also wanted to do, instead of blur, I wanted to go with color correction, and I wanted to do something where I change like the color of this. I could just click this one that says change color. So I can click and drag that and drop it on here. And now you'll see that my blur is still there, as well as the change color one is on there. And I can change the color by, like just the same methods that I did before. So it's going to change the blue color. And let's say I wanted to like drop a keyframe there in that spot, and then scroll forward and crank this thing one direction or another. Who knows what will happen, right? You can definitely change some of these items a little bit easier than other ones. Like that's the tolerance, softness, so now I just have transformed it from one spot to sort of the other one, right? So there's just a ton of like options, and if I try something and it stinks and I don't like it, I can always just click this FX box and turn that effect off, so it's gone now. Or if I really don't like it, I want to get rid of it, I can just select it and delete it. So there's just a ton of places that you can play around with this. Like if you wanted to go to like, some kind of a color changer, you could do that. And then if you just crank on this, you'll see that it changes the hue. So, and I can keyframe that, right? So I can put a keyframe down there, which again will show up further down in my menu down here in the layers, and just crank this over there. Now I've gone from like one layer, one color to another one. I can totally like warp and change that around any way that I'd like to. And then if I keep twirling, since I have the dots instead of the diamonds, I could tell, okay, I got to go in here and twirl down even further, and there they actually are, and I can go in there and adjust and change the variables. I could also double click this and, like change that to 300 and see how the color changes when I do that. So I can double click any of these diamonds and adjust the variable just by typing it in. So, now I've gone, I've kind of added quite a bit to that with all these effects. Last little thing to know about for effects, which is kind of, again, there's some crazy ones in here. I'd suggest you just sort of putter around and play with them and different things that you can do. But there are things that you can add, like to this, that will like add things to the top of your project, right? So let's say you wanted to make it look like you've got rainfall happening, right? You can click on that and drag down and drop it on there, and you'll get this rainfall like kind of filter that's kind of simulation of rain like falling down on top of it. And since our footage was filmed sideways, up and down, it's coming down from the wrong direction, right? But you can change that by going in here and figuring out where the direction of it all is, and you can definitely sort of play with that. You can add tons of drops or less drops, but so you can do things like that. Again, you can do stuff like there's a starburst thing that you can add that will kind of make it look like you're flying through space. So that could be cool. You would just need to figure out how to let the thing underneath it show through. So maybe you'd blend it with the original a little bit more, so that way you've got you can let the original one show through a little bit, and so that could be something you could play around with. There's just a lot of like options that you can kind of go for. So these things are crazy. There's a million options for effects. Again, if you want to do something specific, I always recommend you just kind of Google it, like how to add smoke in After Effects, and it'll teach. There's a lot of tutorials that'll show you exactly how to do that thing. But this is the gist of how these effects work. See what you can, see what kind of craziness you can make happen, and try to always make sure that you're choosing to do things intentionally in the end when you get to the end of your project, so you can explain why you chose what you chose and what the kind of meaning of it is for you.